Hello, everyone. Joining us on YouTube Live, and thanks to Cisco and our wonderful team supporting us here today. So today we're talking about Waves of Resilience, our session on how to approach setbacks and keep going. This is the 6th of 10 free events this week with over 40 amazing speakers. I'd like to start by paying respects to the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples today. I'm Yvonne Kelly, the founder of Glow Up Careers. So we're a tech-enabled global community of career coaches. We're also a social enterprise, and that's why we're here bringing you Bridging Careers in partnership with Cisco live on YouTube all week free. All of our speakers have volunteered their time, and I want to say a huge thank you to them for doing so. And we're so grateful for them all sharing their knowledge, especially in this current environment. We've had absolutely amazing discussions in our other sessions next week, and we've still got 2 days to go. So this session will run for 60 minutes. If you'd like to share and comment on social media, we're using the hashtag BridgingCareers, so hashtag BridgingCareers, all one word. We'll also live in the event, so follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handles are @GlowUpCareers. So please make sure to tell us what you think. We're getting really great feedback on all of the sessions. If you look on the right of your screen, you'll see a chat on YouTube Live. We're delighted to have some of our team of Glow Up coaches there to answer questions for you today. Hopefully we'll have some time for a couple of those questions to ask the panel near the end. So let's get straight into this session. I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear about all this panel have faced resilience and adversity, and yeah, really looking forward to the conversation. So we'll start off by welcoming Layne Beachley. So Layne is a 7-time world champion, widely regarded as the most successful surfer in history. The only surfer to claim 6 consecutive world titles. Layne's story is a testimony to the power of self-belief. Learning how to lose taught her how to win, and her career was a really emotional roller coaster of happiness, injury, adventure, depression, failure, and ultimately success. An officer of the Order of Australia, chair of Surfing Australia, and founder of the Awake Academy, Layne's sights are firmly set on cultivating connection, growth, and happiness in humanity. Welcome, Layne. Layne's also very kindly offered all of our viewers today a 10% discount on one of the Awake Academy programs. So Alex will just pop that little code, it's Awake10, and awakeacademy.com.au. So thank you, Layne, for joining us and the wonderful work you're doing.
Thanks, Yvonne. Thank you.
Stacey Kopas is next. So Stacey is amazing with such a positive spirit. She hasn't let a devastating accident that left her quadriplegic and needing a wheelchair for life at 12 years old slow her down. Her first book, which I love, and I've got it right here, How to Be Resilient, is a beautiful handbook for getting results when things don't go to plan. Stacey has achieved some remarkable feats, including starring in a feature film with no acting experience. She volunteered in the Solomon Islands. She competed at a national level in para-athletics after 22 years on the sidelines and has run for Parliament. She's a keynote speaker on resilience, and we are so delighted that she's also a Glow Up accredited coach and part of our coach community. So welcome, Stacey. We're so excited to have you here. So next we have Yasser. So Yasser Nasseri escaped from Iran after the Green Revolution began in 2009, which was heavily suppressed by the government. So he embarked on an unknown journey to Indonesia, where he was imprisoned several times and made 5 attempts to take a boat to Australia. One sank in the middle of the Indian Ocean, leaving only Yasser and 36 out of 250 other asylum seekers to survive. But survive he did. With the help of UNHCR, Yasser finally arrived in Australia in 2014. Having no educational background, he started from scratch, studying English at TAFE and then received a scholarship to Sydney Uni. And he's recently completed a Bachelor of Commerce degree there, and he's currently looking for a job. So anyone out there that's looking for an amazing, enthusiastic business graduate, reach out. We highly recommend Yasser.
Thank you very much.
He's faced extraordinary and unprecedented challenges through his journey, and he now shares his story in high schools, unis, and with other refugees to inspire them and really change their trajectory. So yeah, welcome Yasser and all the amazing work. And Yasser, I actually met Yasser because he was a participant in our Glow Up Careers pro bono coaching program. He worked with one of our amazing coaches called Tim. So yeah, thank you Yasser for joining and yeah, sharing some of your story with us today.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you for inviting.
And last but by no means least, our moderator for the day is Antoinette Latouf. So Antoinette is a multi-award winning journalist and a diversity advocate. She's a senior journalist at Network 10 and the director of Media Diversity Australia. In 2019, she was named among AFR's 100 Women of Influence. Antoinette has worked in commercial media and public broadcasting media across television, radio, and online. So welcome, Antoinette.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
So Antoinette, we'll just start and ask a question of you. So obviously in recent times, we have to be more resilient. And we've talked a little bit about all through this week, there's been a theme of diversity and inclusion and the fact that, COVID has made us all feel that we're equal. It's affected people in different ways, and it's affected all types of people from all different backgrounds. What is your opinion on resilience and how, I suppose, it's come to the fore in recent times?
Yeah, I think for a long time, there's been this kind of ongoing commentary about young Australians, in particular millennials. They've never really endured hardship. They don't know how to put in a fight. They've had everything given them on a silver spoon. Their world doesn't exist beyond an iPhone. And I think for a generation of Australians, this is the first time that they have really lived through something incredibly challenging and all-consuming. And that's not to say at an individual level people haven't faced adversity on their own, but at a societal level, we haven't lived through a Great Depression or a World War or something that Yasser's experienced. We've been quite fortunate. If you grew up in Australia and you're a young person or at the beginning of your career, chances are it's been pretty smooth sailing for you. So I think this is a real, a bit of a wake-up call, but the first challenge for a lot of Australians in their lives. So I guess for me, that's what stands out the most, because the media has spent a bit of time kind of millennial bashing a little bit. Put your phones down, look around at the world, you're just a little bit spoiled and you've never had it tough. Well, guess what? Now everybody has it tough. So I guess that's my takeaway from what COVID has meant for resilience and Australians.
Yeah, amazing. And yesterday we had someone share about the fact that I think it was a rash board bar mentioned that us all being in isolation is starting to feel how other people who are new to Australia feel when they get here, and obviously those in detention. Yasser has experienced that. So yeah, really important point. So Antoinette, I'm going to hand over in your very capable hands to maybe throw the same question out to the panel and continue the conversation.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm certainly super excited. So, Stacey, I'm going to start off with you. I guess the word resilience gets thrown around a lot, but I'd be keen for your personal definition. How would you describe what resilience means to you?
Yeah, I think resilience has been quite interesting in that I've found that over the years that it's been, I guess the word resilience has been on my radar, that it unfortunately has just become synonymous with just coping. And I really feel that just sells it so short. Or you hear the phrase, oh, it's all about bouncing back. But again, I feel that that's really a limited view of resilience, because it just implies that you just keep coming back to the same point that you were before you faced a challenge. So for me, I really feel resilience is actually about growing and learning. I feel it's a proactive strategy rather than a reactive strategy. And I definitely feel that it's about how we can actually grow through a challenge rather than just go through a challenge, and how, rather than just surviving, you can actually go a little bit further than that, and you can sort of revive and actually thrive in challenging situations. And definitely seeing in this time, I think I saw a survey published recently that said that in this last sort of 6 months or so, that 3 times the amount of people have said that resilience is now something that's actually important to them, particularly in business. So it's definitely had a bit of a boost in the last 6 months, that's for sure.
That's a really important distinction, and I guess it's a natural segue to you, Lane. Do you agree that for too long resilience has been about treading water and not swimming?
I don't agree with the premise of it treading water, because resilience is built through failure and setbacks and obstacles. But I do agree with Stacey's comment around it's not so much about bouncing back to the point that you started at. It's actually about growing and going past that. And I love how she framed that. Because today I feel like, well, up until COVID, I felt like we were breeding kids who are reliant, not resilient, and we've been wrapping them up in cotton wool and preventing them from enduring hardship and pain and suffering, and they're ill-equipped to deal with these challenges, which is maybe contributing to the high suicide rates, because they don't really know how to deal with the discomfort and things not working out the way they want them. So resilience runs much deeper than just bouncing back from a challenge. It's a test of character. It's a platform for you to kind of shine the light on your own inadequacies and your own infallibilities, and just go, okay, am I strong enough to bounce back from this? And then what does life look like post this? You've got to accept where you are to then progress to the future. So it is all about growth and learning.
You've mentioned, and I also touched on it earlier, that for many young people, they haven't had to endure something that required resilience or necessarily equipped with the skills to tackle something that's challenging. But Yasser, you did as a young person. Can you talk us through what it was you went through, how you came out the other end, and did you at the time put it down to resilience that got you through it?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to speak about my story. It's a long story, and I always have difficulty to share my story because I have to squeeze it, and you just, it's very difficult. Well, for me, I didn't know anything about resilience, but I kind of experienced it. I lived it because I had a lot of difficulties back home, and when I was a teenager, when I was a kid, when I was dealing with parents with a lot of family violence, and I was kind of ready for challenges. But my experience in Indonesia, being in a place that you plan to leave after 1 or 2 months and you're already there for 3 years, it kind of put me in a situation to just be in a survival mode. But now when I look back, resilience for me was, first of all, accepting what it is. What's the situation is, where am I? And the other thing was self-awareness, like, who am I? I can deal with this. I dealt with different things, so I can deal with this. If it's in front of me, for me, it's like a kind of internal belief that if something challenging me, I'm capable of dealing with it, which come back to how much you know yourself. And for me, the challenge in Indonesia was so extreme, dealing with detention, dealing with, sinking in the middle of Indian Ocean, watching people die. It was so extreme that for me, it wasn't about coping anymore, or as your speaker says, bouncing back. It was like I had to survive. And for doing that, I have to find a way to not just accepting the situation, but grow and go forward. And in doing that, I had to find my abilities. I have to reach out for help. I had to do a lot of stuff, which later on, maybe I touch on it. But yeah, I think my challenge was so extreme, and the resilience for me what I know today, Ambrose, maybe today, what I know about resilience today, where, you know, I read from the books, from internet, I didn't know anything about that. I was in a situation I had to act out. I had to do something about my situation. And I've watched a lot of people gave up. And the other thing for me is like, sometimes we coping with situation, but we build up negativity, which in the end push us to give up. But for me, it wasn't that, because I knew if I thrive in negativity, the situation is very difficult that I easily would give up. So I had to be positive, and I have to find a way to do that.
So it sounds like, you know, in the moment it was about survival, but perhaps now building your future has more to do with resilience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's again, one thing I learned in my life in early kind of, you know, young age is challenges and difficulties always come back. It's like I don't know, it's like a seasons in life, you know, or winter always come. There is no exception, you know.
And how do you, having experienced what you did as a child in your home country on your journey here, how do you then view the challenges COVID is presenting you with? I mean, is it something like, I got this, or do, you know, some of the feelings return?
Well, actually, I'm not a good writer. I mean, I just learned English when I arrived here. But when COVID hits, I started doing self-isolation at home, and I was involved with like a lot of study, full-time study. Everything went online, everything changed suddenly, and I had to stay at home. And I'm kind of very extroverted. I love to go out and meeting people. It was very difficult. And then imagine you come through all 3 years of difficulties, and now you have COVID. Like, it's easy to complain. It's easy to give up. It's easy to just start saying, life is not nice for me, and so on. But what I did was I start thinking that that's a good situation, that, as you earlier mentioned, a lot of people can now understand what a refugee or asylum seeker going through, because they have to be self-isolated. I know it's in their home in Australia, there are a lot of supports, but still there is a link that they can build to understand the refugee down the road in detention or other country, that they don't have family, or if they have, they cannot see them, they cannot meet them, and they have to be isolated. And I wrote an article and I published it in LinkedIn. I don't know if it wasn't that great, but that's my approach. I have to do something about what is in front of me. Another thing was like, I started doing yoga. I never did yoga. So I just said, well, Yasser, if you sit down, the negativity kind of built up and you will give up easily. So I know myself. And because I know myself, I have to do more. I have to do stuff to not giving up.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's great to hear that you kept yourself busy and productive. A lot of people took up yoga. A lot of other people took up sourdough baking. I did neither. But Stacey, I want to bring you in at this point. Yasser's explained and gone through some real adversity in life, and you have yourself as well. So I want to hear a little bit about that. But then I'm keen to hear your thoughts and your tips for people who have otherwise not had any challenges. How do you build resilience or learn resilience?
Yeah, look, for me, I think looking at this whole situation that's happened around COVID is, I feel that in a way that my story has probably become a little bit more relatable, and Yasser's story as well, in that it's actually given people a bit of a taste of what it's actually like to have your life changed in an instant and have absolutely zero control over it, and have that overwhelming sense of uncertainty and fear around not knowing has been a huge thing. So
for those that don't know your backstory, and I'm sure they're super keen, can you get us
Sure. So when I was 12 years old, I was a little bit of a high achiever as a kid, and I was doing really well academically. All I wanted to do with my life was to be a vet. I'd gone to school here in New South Wales. I got a first round offer into a selective agricultural school, so I was definitely on track for what I wanted to do there. And aside from studying, I was an athlete. I was a pitcher in the softball team in summer, and I was one of the first 2 girls to ever play soccer for my school after about a 6-month fight. was like 30 years ago, so I'm feeling very old now. And I represented my school running every distance from the 100 metres right through to the cross country. So I was, academically gifted, athletically gifted, great friends, normal family. And then one afternoon I was cooling off in a backyard swimming pool with my younger brother, who was 10, a couple of other boys. And what I did was every time I visited this relative's places, I just kept climbing up on the edge of the pool and diving in. And I was getting yelled at to stop, but being bulletproof and 12 and invincible, I ignored that. And instead, I just kept trying. I wanted to perfect a dive. I wanted to make a perfect dive. And so I stood there for a moment thinking, if I hold my feet together and keep my legs straight, then I could make a perfect dive. And so I did exactly that, and I took a deep breath and I dived in, and it felt like any other dive until I went to try and swim to the surface and I realised I couldn't move. So I was completely conscious, holding my breath at the bottom of the pool. I didn't feel any pain, desperately trying to get the attention of my brother, and which I couldn't do. And I held my breath for as long as I could, but when I couldn't hold it any longer, I had to give in, and I breathed in and my lungs filled with water and I blacked out. And eventually the others realised something was wrong and pulled me out, and it was at the third hospital later that night that I had a doctor come and tell me that I'd actually broken my neck and drowned and that I'd never walk again. So for me, that was it felt like a death sentence in the moment. Couldn't do anything I wanted to do. So for me, that was having that life changed in an absolute instant. It was a very challenging time. And, it took me years and years and years in the darkness to eventually come out the other side and be able to eventually see what had happened with absolute gratitude, because I think that's probably, for me, the biggest part of resilience has been gratitude and as Yasser said, it's acceptance, but then being grateful for that experience and realising that we can't change anything that's happened. All we can do is change how we feel about it, the story we tell about it, and then we can change what we do next. And I feel that that's just such a powerful part of resilience is taking ownership of our situation, changing the story. We're not changing the facts, we're just changing the story we tell ourselves and we tell others. And I feel that that's, in this situation, particularly for those that are having, career struggles, who have lost their jobs or are out there trying to get another job, it's being very conscious of the story that you associate with the process. And the right story can be empowering and the wrong story can send you down into a deep, dark spiral.
Thank you so much. That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting that you said you changed the story. What's your story now then? You earlier had said it, you felt it was a death sentence. What is it now?
Yeah, I look at it, I look at it at absolute gratitude. I am completely grateful that my life was changed in that way. I can say with absolute certainty that I have had experiences I would never have had otherwise. And most people think, how the heck can ending up a quadriplegic and needing a wheelchair for the rest of your life be positive? But, those that spend time with me know that I am truly grateful. And I think that once I shifted that and I then had an empowering story, then it also then empowers you to do different things moving forward. And that's just led me now to the story I have it's around, I've had that brush with death, and I've lost that ability to walk, but I still have, an abundance of opportunity ahead. So now it's just a matter of say yes, figure it out. If there's something that you've said that you want to do in 10 years' time, do it tomorrow. If we can, it's just not taking things for granted, not taking people for granted. And I think the big thing is that's so relevant to our situation right now is it's not getting complacent. Because I think that the great thing about COVID and the pandemic is it's really shaken people up to realise that we can't get complacent, that the way things are the way they always are going to be. So I think that that's been a really powerful shift for me, and I think that definitely a big lesson for us all in this time.
Yeah, great advice. Now, Lane, I'm keen to hear from you. You have an enormously, illustrious career, a high profile. You look the picture of happiness and success. Has it always been this way for you? What adversity have you faced?
I'm so good at putting up a shop front. It's all great. Have happy days. Amazing. And Stacey knows me well too. We've been good friends for quite some time. The challenges that I've overcome, mostly around loss. I lost my mother when I was 6. I lost my next one when I was 30. I lost my next one when I was 46 or 47. And then injuries, and then dealing with depression through chronic fatigue syndrome. I really want to go back to two things. One thing that Yasser has said and one thing that Stacey said that both have resonated with me very strongly. Number one, when Yasser was talking about how he knew himself well and self-awareness, the importance of self-awareness, and I think that's something that really needs to become part of the school curriculum, because it's self-awareness that has helped both Stacey and Yasser through some of the darkest, most challenging moments in their life. It gives you the tools and the strength and the intestinal fortitude to choose, and it all comes down to being aware of how you're feeling in that moment and then how you want to feel. And then it's that feeling that then creates the transference or creates the change. And then once you create the change, then that creates a new story. And as Stacey was talking about the story, because I think about some of the stories which all emulate from our childhood. I think about some of the stories that I used to subscribe to, such as I'm unloved because I was an adoptee, or I'm never going to make it because my peers told me I'm not good enough, or I'm fat and ugly because I don't fulfill that model of a beach body surfer girl. And how those stories kind of kept me stuck and kept me in a life of mediocrity and a life of negativity. And it was my sense of self-awareness, and then also the people that I had around me that I was able to rely on to help me get out of those periods. So now, actually, through my course, through On Your Truth, which is on the Academy website, I help people rewrite those stories through a rose-tinted lens. And you hear Stacey talk about anchoring herself in gratitude after losing the ability to walk. I mean, it's unfathomable for someone like me who has walked freely for her whole life and relies on the use of my hands and feet to surf. So it's a fascinating concept.
I think a lot of people who are listening now at home will be thinking, or at work or on the train, or maybe if you're in Melbourne at the hairdressers, because you're finally allowed to go to one, maybe thinking, okay, how do I rewrite my story? My story right now is that I don't have a job. I spend more time than I want at home. I may not be in a relationship that I like, but, I spend more time with this person. How can I rewrite this story when I feel the odds are stacked against me? Happy for whoever wants to take this to go.
I think all of us could contribute to that, to answering that. I'll go with step one, guys. And step one is shining a light on the current story, because a lot of us live in denial of the story that we're living. We're constantly told that life's amazing and just think positive and just pretend that you're not feeling that way. I think about kids who are upset or sad or distressed, and most often the parents will go, oh, don't be silly, don't feel that way. And it's like, well, no, they do feel that way. So why don't we explore how they're feeling? Because there's a story wrapped around it. But if you're told don't be silly, then you're believing that the story that you're subscribing to is silly. So why share that? So I feel like as parents and as teachers and as role models, the best thing that we can do is come to these situations or come into these conversations with a greater sense of curiosity for either the person that we're talking to or ourselves, and sit in that for a moment. I mean, we've got to learn to sit in our own shit, right? Because it's challenging to accept what we don't want to accept. But if we can learn to accept it within ourselves, then that gives us the vulnerability and therefore the strength to move past it. But if we can't accept what you're currently enduring and experiencing, then therefore you will never have an awareness of it. Therefore, you can't really change anything. You'll just live in denial of it.
No, I think that's a really good point. Sitting with being comfortable with being uncomfortable and familiarizing yourself with the story.
Yeah.
What I have been witnessing is a bit of rejection of the story. And Stacey, I'll bring you in at this point. Some people saying, well, I shouldn't feel this way because at least I'm on JobKeeper, or I shouldn't feel this way because I don't have 3 kids and a mortgage. And people, I shouldn't feel this way. Look at the United States, and people always comparing, because in this environment, there is always someone which seems worse off than you. Stacey, what's your advice for someone who is uncomfortable with their story because they don't feel they're worthy of feeling the way they're feeling? It's almost as though they're trying to talk themselves out of it.
Yeah, I think it's been described as like it's survivor's guilt, isn't it? There is almost a sense of guilt around having those feelings because there is that comparison. I guess there's two parts to that. It's the feelings that you're feeling, and then there's the comparison. So much as Lane said, it's super important. You need to feel stuff. And this is why often there's people that 40 years later still having therapy for something that happened, back 40 years ago, because they didn't feel it at the time, and they've suppressed it and they've suppressed it and they've run away from it. And anytime they've got close to it and it got uncomfortable, they ran the opposite direction again. And that running could be, a numerous number of outlets. Some are healthy and some are not healthy. So I think it's really important that we do have to actually sit with it. We've got to experience it. And there's that saying, you can't heal what you can't heal what you don't feel. So it's really important to do that. But the important thing is not to stay there forever is such a huge part. And I really, the whole thing about, comparing yourself, someone's always got it worse off. Like, I personally hate that approach, because what does it really matter? Like I don't really get what that's about. I know it's probably just a throwaway line to go, don't feel so bad. There's always someone that's worse off.
I think.
Also, I think you're on mute there still, Antoinette.
So I think with COVID, it's perhaps a little bit different, because it is something literally we are all experiencing, whether we like it or not. And I feel that some people don't accept or try and justify the way they're feeling and talk themselves out of the way they're feeling, because it's all around us. The death and devastation and loss is all around us, and it's hard you can feel guilty worrying about yourself. I guess that's what I'm keen for you to get.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is it's like, we need to focus on ourselves. This is something, it's not selfish. It's, it's selfless. And really, we can't change any of that stuff that's going on out there. We can't change any of it. The thing that I've found has been the most productive for having a better, state of well-being and positive mental health through this whole process is to stop I know you're going to hate me saying this, Antoinette, but stop watching the news. But it's okay. I think it's okay to check the news and be aware of the news, but we can't become all consumed with it. Because if you get focus on every 5 minutes refreshing, the live blog or the Twitter feed or whatever to see what's happening out there, is that you do neglect what's happening in here. And it's like you become what you consume. So if you're consuming fear every day, you become a state of fear. So I think it's really important to be so conscious about what you're taking in at every time. And that's the information, it's what you eat, it's what you drink, it's the people you spend time with. It's just making sure that you do things that actually do make you feel more light and not so drained down. And also just recognizing that, I think parking that guilt aside, it's checking in with it and going, okay, yeah, all right, this is my initial reaction, but then going, okay, well, I need to then take a moment to go, well, how am I going to respond? And recognizing that some of those reactions they're human, but the response is something that you have the choice to do with.
Thank you for that. And Yasser, I'd be keen to hear, do you find that friends and family come to you for advice because they think, this is somebody who has great life experience, or perhaps they shy away from it because they may think, well, what I'm struggling with may seem silly or trivial or small in comparison. Like, my biggest struggle is I don't know how to format my CV, or my biggest struggle is that I've been rejected by, from the last 12 jobs I've applied for. Should I go and speak to Yasser? Or, does this seem too small a problem given what he's tackled?
Well, I mostly work with refugees and asylum seekers who are either have been here for a long time waiting for their visa, or people who came like me through UNHCR and they kind of want to start and they don't want what to do, which direction to go. And I put this in parentheses. Sometimes the country I come from, the difficulty was there was no option, not much option. The problems and challenge here is there are a lot of options and make it very confusing to decide. So my role is always like to help them to choose and give them the availability of options and showing the options and, kind of mentoring them through kind of their journey. But sometimes I get that feedback even from my Australian born friends, or mostly refugees, that when I share my story and they know my story, it's too extreme that they kind of trying to they cannot relate to it. It's very extreme. And my role again here, which I'm working at the moment on it, is that kind of not going too extreme, but trying to find the common points with the challenges that those people have and I have. And one point is like, if you grow up in Australia and your dog, for example, is sick, that's extreme for you, or you lost your dog. It's same as like, I don't know, I went through an extreme event back home, or I was, I don't know, my friend was shot next to me in demonstration or in protest in Iran. So I try to kind of bring those two together and find common points and kind of focusing on those rather than just focusing on extreme pain points of my story.
So what would you say are some of those common points when it comes to being resilient and overcoming a challenge?
I think what I found is feeling. Like when you feel pain, I mean, there is different level of pains, of course, but when we feel pain because of the events that happen in our lives, we are still feeling it. We are human, right? I felt grief when I don't know, lost my friend in protest in Iran, or when I was lashed for drinking a glass of beer. A person feel pain when, I don't know, they have issue, or I call it normal issue, or not that extreme issue in Australia. Maybe they have problem with their assignment, maybe they have problem with their boyfriend or girlfriend, or with their pets. They're still feeling the pain. And that's the common thing. That's for human. And then I cannot measure that pain. They cannot measure my pain, but we can know that we are both going through a pain and a feeling and grief. And that's where I have to focus, where, it's we going through the grief, we going through a feeling of being challenged, being in pain, and feeling of, I don't know, sadness, sorrow, disappointment, hopelessness. And I try to find those keywords in the both sides of the story and focus on that. And, the common point, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, you did.
I think what Yas is saying is really important, is the feeling, and then also relating it back to that story around comparison always leads to that sense of inadequacy. And the biggest mistake that happens is when we go into that state of comparison, irrespective of whether we're comparing ourselves to make ourselves feel better or comparing ourselves to make us feel worse, it still results in a feeling. So it's not the comparison that you need to worry about, it's the feeling that it evokes, or the feeling that it triggers, and then that triggers a story, and that story is then what's driving the behaviour. So if you can build the self-awareness around whatever the comparison, whatever the story is, and then the feeling that it creates, then you can actually transfer it or shift it. So it's actually just kind of having the courage and the vulnerability to put a mirror up in front of your face and going, why am I saying these things to myself? Like, why am I buying into this shit? How is this serving me? Is it keeping me stuck, or is it progressing me forward? And then that helps you then either change the story or at least become aware of the trigger, so you don't continue to react to it. You can then take a deep breath and start responding to it differently.
Okay, so just to get up to speed, we've talked about shining a light on ourselves, even if it makes ourselves uncomfortable, to getting to know your story, not comparing your story to somebody else. Okay, so once you've done all of those things, you're comfortable with where you're at, which is probably not a good place. You've stopped comparing to somebody else, because either way, it doesn't make you feel particularly good. And you're familiar with your story. What then? How do you transfer that into something that looks like resilience? Right? To this point, it sounds like understanding the problem. Just, I guess, as an alcoholic needs to admit that he's an alcoholic, he or she is an alcoholic, before they can get better. That's step one. What comes next?
For me, that's where the gratitude kicks in. So it's one of the first steps I use in any situation is to say thank you for it, because you can't feel bad about something you're grateful for. So I feel that's that transition point from that acceptance and that awareness to then going, okay, now this is the way I change the way I feel about it. And gratitude I use proactively, and I also use it situationally. So from a proactive perspective, the way I use gratitude is I actually use I use mantras rather than your typical gratitude. Other people use a gratitude journal, and generally that's, write down 3 to 5 things you're grateful for in any moment. Personally, I found it didn't really work for me because it felt like it was an obligation, and you kind of felt that, oh, geez, what am I going to write about today? And so heart wasn't in it, so it wasn't really shifting that energy. So I started to use mantras. So and it started with the thank you for the experience I'm having in this moment. And that has evolved into now I say this, it's the last thing I say when I fall asleep of a night. It's the first thing I say in the morning. It's the thing I say anytime I'm in that moment where I'm feeling overwhelmed or stuck or angry or frustrated or anything that's not a healthy, empowering feeling for myself, is just to say thank you for the opportunity to be who I am, where I am, with what I have at this moment in time. And I feel that gratitude at the moment, people are probably thinking, I don't really have a lot to be grateful for because all this stuff is wrong. But if you just shift that straight away and actually just be grateful for the whole experience, energetically, that just makes a huge difference. So the gratitudes I definitely feel that's the next point. And, gratitude's one of the rituals that I have, for resilience, and there's a number, like that's the proactive way to do it. But also just in every moment to actually go through your day and be very mindful and observant of all of the things that are happening around us, and actually stop for a moment and go, isn't this actually really amazing? The amazing feeling of stepping outside the door and feeling the sun on your skin, the feeling of sitting and watching a leaf drift down from a tree, watching a way a bird jumps from tree to tree, listening to just the sound of, the rain or any of those things. These are all things we can do in any given moment. So I find that if you do that every day, then that starts to actually just completely shift your energy. And when you come from a place of gratitude, then that absolutely builds your resilience, and it helps you to respond more positively in any challenging situation.
Lane, has gratitude worked for you?
At times, yes, it has. There's science is showing that it's one thing to write down things you're grateful for, but actually it doesn't anchor it or give meaning to those items unless you add why you're grateful for them. And something I've learned recently also is that mantras are also wonderful. I have a mantra, which is I am happy, I'm healthy, I'm fit, and I'm strong. When you say something to yourself, your subconscious mind naturally either projects into the future or reflects back into the past to find an answer. So if you're a question, for example, such as, why is this so painful, or why is this so punishing, your mind will instantly go back to find an answer to it. And because we'd rather be right than happy, it's very easy for us to find validative truths in our own archives to validate what's currently happening to us now. And gratitude is one of the ways that you can actually disconnect from that negativity or that disconnect from that fear. Because why am I so grateful for the sun shining today? Well, that's got a way more positive component to it versus why is this so punishingly painful? Now, I definitely want to, mention the fact that it's okay to be in pain. And as Stacey said, it's just not a matter, it's not reasonable to stay there for too long. So yes, gratitude has worked for me, but I've actually started using the question why. So when I ask myself, or when I say to myself, my mantra, I am happy, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm strong, I then respond to that by asking myself, why am I so happy? Why am I so healthy? Why am I so fit? Why am I so strong? And then your subconscious mind goes back and seeks validation to those points. So that way you're maintaining a positive or at least an optimistic mindset without getting caught up in the, why aren't I fit enough? Or why aren't I healthy enough? Or why am I so fat? Oh, this is because, when you ask yourself negative questions, your subconscious mind will find an answer for it. So anchoring yourself in gratitude, connecting it with why, and then having that self-awareness of how you're feeling when you say these things to yourself that's what creates the habitual change. And then you can detach from the fear and the negativity.
Well, I think those tips are certainly going to be very useful for some of the people watching this who may be feeling a little desperate, a little sick of applying for jobs, and probably asking, why am I not getting it? What is wrong with me? Yasser, since you're on the job hunt, I thought I'll go to you to talk about what your process has been like, and how you've dealt with navigating quite a difficult job market at the moment.
Oh, well, it's been difficult. The other day, somebody shared in LinkedIn like reject, 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 and I comment. It's like my inbox these days.
Yeah.
A lot of rejection, a lot of it's painful. Like second language, new in Australia, writing a lot of cover letters, tailoring resumes, and applying for all these jobs, and then you simply get an email like reject, or unfortunately we don't have, like, you're not the best candidate or something like that. So it's difficult. But I was asked a lot of times this question in the past few months, and my first answer kind of automatically came to me was, I got good things in bad times. And I think it's come back to your perspective, and this perspective has been built through your experience. And for me, I went through a lot of painful times, and if you ask me, what are the best part of your life? I say 3 years in Indonesia, in Jakarta. It was very painful if you read my story, but the past 2 years of it, like the last 2 years of it, I learned a lot. I built a great network. I met great people. I had a lot of life lessons that I never could learn if I wasn't there. And I learned how to deal with challenge, and how to be resilient, and how to find solution, and be positive. So now I'm trying to use those skills that I've kind of practiced or learned, and just applying it here. That's why I try to be active, and gratitude, or being grateful for me today, is doing action. If I'm grateful for my health, I'm using it. If I'm grateful for being in Australia, being in freedom, being in a beautiful country, finally, after all these painful times, I'm using my time proactively, and this is my gratefulness, not just in words but in action, kind of. So yeah, I try to be positive. I try to keep going with my networks, reaching out to people I know, and just do whatever I can.
I know you're just about to finish your studies, but I do wonder, and I'll open it to the rest of the panel. And Lane, I've seen you've had a couple of career pivots. Perhaps is this a time to, when we shine the light on ourselves and get to know our story, and when we're writing our future story in a career context, to write it differently? Is this the time to potentially think about retraining, or going for a job we otherwise wouldn't apply for, or if we've had 15 rejections, is it a time to be bold and brave, or or should we just keep trying?
It's the time to get out of your own way. It's the time to challenge yourself. I mean, we're being challenged, so why not embrace the challenge and do things differently? And that the inability or the resistance to that is a story you're telling yourself. We all have the capacity and the ability to do that, but it does start with your story. So shining a light on a couple of things that hold you back from fulfilling your potential. One of the ways I was able to get out of my own way and do things differently, as you said, I've had quite a few different pivots, which is such a classic COVID word these days, isn't it? Throughout my professional surfing career, is after I won my 6th world title, my body broke down mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I was broken. And I was able to come back and win my 7th world title. But deep down, the universe was saying to me, you're not going to do it again the way that you've done it before. So you're going to have to learn to do things differently. And I embraced that wholeheartedly by letting go of what I knew, letting go of how I've done it. I have that platform, I have all that experience, but I need to actually focus my attention on how I can do it better, more sustainably, have actually more fun. And one of the simplest ways I was able to really connect with that and embrace that was changing my dialogue and changing my language. So I took very pertinent words out of my vocabulary, because to me they suggest the opposite of what they're actually portraying. So I've taken the words hope. I hope you're having a good day. Now, there's nothing wrong with having hope, but saying hope is the opposite of trusting. I've turned hope into an acronym. It's heaps of plausible excuses. So if I hope you're having a good day, I mean, it's out of my control whether you're having a good day or not. And quite honestly, I trust you're having a good day because it's entirely up to you whether you're having a good day or not. I've taken the word try out of my vocabulary because try is also the opposite of trusting. I don't try to do anything because to me, if I'm trying, I'm pushing shit uphill all the time. So I've stopped trying. I've started trusting. I've stopped hoping. I've started believing. I've stopped thinking because thinking means it's the opposite of feeling. If you're stuck in thought, then you're out of your heart space. So instead of I think so, it's either I know it or I feel it or I need to learn it. And I've stopped guessing because if I'm guessing, then I'm certainly not in control and I'm certainly not in confident states. So thinking, guessing, hoping and trying are gone.
They're cancelled.
Gone.
Yeah, okay. Stacey, any words that you've cancelled or any states of mind that you've tried to get rid of?
Yeah, it's funny that Lane brings up the hope and the trust because I did learn that from Lane many, many years ago, and it's certainly something that I use the word trust and not hope these days as well. So, yeah, definitely the language is just so powerful, and it's actually one of the chapters in my book because it's the thing that we can change things so simply. Because what I've learned over the years is that the way we describe an experience is how we feel it and how we experience it. The words we use comes back to the story. So it's making sure you're using more those more empowering words. And I think there's a few in that I popped in the book as well. Should. The word should is like it's full-on swear word for me. And I literally bristle every time I hear someone say should. Because should, if you're using it in a past tense, it's like you're beating yourself up for something you haven't done. If you're using it in a future tense, you're putting pressure on yourself and it becomes like obligatory and much like the try. And I just think if you can switch that word out for could, because you could have done something and you could do something in the future, and could is a choice. And so that's a huge one for me. The other one I hate is what if, but in a negative context. So if you're going, oh, what if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I mess it up? How about what if this could be the most amazing experience in my life? What if this ends up going beautifully? What if, what if this is just incredible? What if I meet someone that is going to change the course of my life because I put myself out there? Is another one. And the other one I find is I know. Because I think every time we say, I know that, we are shutting ourselves off to learning experiences. And, so many times I think that the things we hear that shift us are things that were not new to us. But often we need to hear the same messages over and over again, or at different times in our lives, or from different messengers. And then that just lands for us. So I just challenge people, if they hear them say, I know that, or I've done that, or those sort of things, is just stop and go, well, how can I do it differently? Like, what can I do now? I think all of it comes down to it's really just looking at coming from a space of I like to believe the best is yet to come, being incredibly grateful for everything that has been and everything that is, but having a positive sense of anticipation, and anticipation, not anxiety. So I think it all comes down to the words we use, and it just makes a world of difference.
We only have a few minutes left, and just as I knew this conversation was going to be so enthralling, it was going to pass really quickly. I'm going to start off, and I'll ask you guys to all do the same. Who the most resilient person is or you've ever met, and why. But super quickly, so we all have a go. Mine is my mother. She came as a refugee with no English. She raised 7 children with very little money, and she continues to reinvent herself and learn and push her boundaries, including last year. Enrolling in TAFE to learn how to use a computer and to learn how to type. This is someone who had no formal education, but her learning and her reflection has never changed. And to me, she's the most resilient and amazing person I've ever met. Stacey.
Oh, this is where the Mutual Admiration Society is probably going to kick in a little bit here. So, look, Lane's a person that, for me, and following Lane's career when I was younger, definitely was something that was super inspiring to me. And then to get the chance to know, Lane personally, and over the years and stuff like that, to sort of see that, wow, that was just a little fraction. But just seeing just how amazing Lane is and the challenges she's faced, but also then how incredibly generous she is as well, is definitely something that's super, super inspiring to me. So Lane's my inspiration poster girl.
Lane, your turn.
Right back at you, Stace. You're my inspirational resilience girl. Like, it's just extraordinary meeting someone like you who can have so much gratitude and love for life. So I'm incredibly inspired by you. However, well, on top of that, the one person who I feel is incredibly resilient is also my dad. He lost the love of his life and watched her go flatline when she died due to cosmetic procedure. And then he watched his next one disappear, through his fingers with breast cancer. He was still able to bring up 3 very resilient, independent and happy kids, and continues to get up at 5 o'clock every day and walk the length of Manly Beach. So he's definitely one of the most resilient people I know.
Sounds like a trooper. Yes, sir.
Well, I think my person is definitely my mom. She unfortunately passed away in March this year, but she divorced in very young age, raised 3 kids. She had a lot of difficulties, start from scratch and open her business in a country that there is not much support for women and for single moms. So she stood up and she was a fighter, and she has been always an inspiration to me. I'm very supportive to me.
She sounds amazing, and sorry for your loss. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time today. It's been such a wonderful chat. And I hope everybody viewing can take something away. At the very least, they can cancel a few words from their...
Oh, hope.
Yes, cancel hope. Hope is gone. Replace it with something else.
I trust you've taken something away from this today.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much. I'll pass back to Yvonne.
Thank you. And I'm going to jump in here because, Lane, every email I start with, I hope you. So I'm going to totally change what I do. And I just want to answer that question about the person that inspires me. And Alison Hallworth, a really good friend of mine, is live tweeting the event. And Alison had a stroke in her 40s last year. And she's such an inspiration and does lots of work at refugees. And she's introduced me to the most amazing people and helped bring a lot of this panel together. And she's always giving of others, and I just want to say a big shout out to Alison because she's a huge inspiration in relation to resilience. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for such an amazing conversation and so many learnings. I've been busy scribbling as I have in each session, and I love the fact that all of our conversations this week have had such a common theme, and they've all been weaving into each other. So yesterday we covered storytelling, we've talked about strength. So I loved how all of you talked about that self-awareness and really getting to know yourself and understand yourself, and then to really kind of move through into that positivity and the gratefulness. And it's just been amazing to hear. As I said, we had a mental health panel on Monday and some great advice about how to help those around you. So Yasser, it was nice for you to answer that question about how do you support people around you and help them through tough times, even if their tough time is different to what you've experienced, but finding that common connection. So that was great. And tomorrow we continue with some more amazing speakers where you guys touched on the importance of wellness and looking after yourself and that self-care. We're going to have an afternoon session tomorrow about well-being, and we'll be covering off nutrition and keeping fit. And Lane, I loved your mantra. I'm just trying to see. So I loved I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I am strong. So we'll be covering some of those topics in the afternoon. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be joined by one of the team from Cisco, who I said has been supporting us amazingly with this event, and some other great speakers talking about how to video interview. And it's been great that people could join us. And I think video is the way of the future, and it's a great way that we can all connect. And I know my mum tuned in from Ireland this morning to watch our morning session, and just being able to share this message with people around the world. So this recording, this will be available on the YouTube channel you're on. If you subscribe to that, all of the recordings will be there on an ongoing basis. So we hope you can share this this conversation. I think it's such an important topic, especially now, to be able to share with people. So thank you to Antoinette for moderating such a beautiful and deep and meaningful conversation. To Stacey for all her amazing inspiration and insights. And yes, as I said, Stacey's such an important part of our Glow of Careers community and always interacting with our coaches. Yasser, wow. Story. Yeah, thank you for joining us, and I really hope somebody gives Yasser an opportunity. I'm going to really make it a mission to help Yasser find a job, so if anyone else can help us. And Lane, wow, yeah, just awesome. Yeah, loved all of your insights, and as I said, I'm going to be taking hope and try out of all my vocabulary from now on. So yeah, I think that's it. We're just going to share a QR code on the screen if you want to interact with me or with Careers and our coaches. If you open up your camera and just click on this QR code, you'll be able to start a chat on Messenger with us there. And we've got some exciting plans on the back of this event. We've had such positive feedback. We're going to gather all that feedback and share it after the event next week. And we've really been helping people who are struggling with mental health, or you know, the feedback that we're getting, that we're truly helping. And that was the real reason for putting this event on, was to make sure that we could help people out there. So yeah, let's see lots of you at 10 a.m. tomorrow back on this YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you again to our wonderful panel members.